I never expected her to remember my name, let alone everything else. The first time I saw her, she was standing near the pastry case at the back of the bookstore cafe, tapping her credit card against the counter like she was keeping time to music only she could hear. She didn't look rushed, just aware of her own rhythm. I'd been working here part-time since March. No real career plan yet. Mostly restocking shelves and making lattes while pretending not to notice how many of my classmates had already moved to cities with skylines and keycards and health insurance. She came in on Tuesdays. Never Monday. Never Wednesday. Always around noon. She ordered the same thing. Oat milk cappuccino extra hot. No lid. The first few weeks we barely spoke. But I noticed her. Not in some movie way. More like the way someone notices the smell of their childhood soap in a stranger's scarf. She had this navy sweater she wore a lot. The sleeves always pushed up, like she meant to get her hands into something but hadn't yet. She'd sit near the window, take out a paperback that looked like it had traveled, and read slowly. Sometimes not at all, just staring out. I noticed she never touched her phone. Or maybe she didn't bring it. One Tuesday I said, "You always get the same table." She looked up, a bit startled, then smiled. Habit, or superstition. Hard to tell the difference some days. After that, we started talking. Nothing big. I'd bring over her coffee instead of calling it out. She'd ask if the bookstore ever sold poetry anymore, then laugh before I could answer. "That was rhetorical," she said once. "Don't look so heartbroken." She laughed in this low, unpracticed way, like it surprised her too. Kept it easy. Light jokes. Comments about the weather. But something about her made me pause. Literally. My hands, usually moving fast with cups or receipts or earbuds, would slow when she was around. I caught myself folding the same napkin twice while she looked for her glasses. Once I almost asked her how her weekend was, then stopped, realizing I'd sound like a kid asking a teacher if she liked cartoons. She never wore a ring. One Tuesday, she didn't show. I kept glancing at the door like an idiot. Even refilled the oat milk just in case. She came in the next week. Same sweater, wind-blown hair, and she looked at me and said, "You cut your hair." I had, "A week ago." But she noticed. "You were gone last week," I said, trying not to sound like I'd missed her. "My mother passed," she said simply, setting her book down. I didn't know what to say. I nodded, poured her cappuccino, slid it over gently. She stayed longer that day. Her book never opened. At one point, she looked around the room, then said, almost absently, "This place is too young." I didn't ask what she meant, but I felt it. That afternoon, when she left, she put her palm flat on the counter for a moment before picking up her bag, like she was grounding herself, or maybe saying thank you without saying it. That night, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't know. It was her. "You don't have to say anything clever. Just, would you like to walk with me next Tuesday?" I read it twice, thumb hovering over the reply, my heart moving faster than it had all day. Outside, the streetlights buzzed quietly. My room was still, and for the first time in a while, I didn't feel like I needed to fill the silence. We walked the next Tuesday. She was waiting outside the cafe, hands in her coat pockets, squinting at a tree across the street like it had said something worth thinking about. When she saw me, her face didn't light up. It just settled, like I was what she'd been waiting for without making it into a thing. We didn't talk much at first, just walked. She liked side streets, quiet ones with cracked sidewalks and trees that leaned in too close. I matched her pace without meaning to. "Used to live around here," she said finally, pointing to a brick building with rusted balconies. "Top floor. No elevator. My ex hated the stairs." That was the first time she'd mentioned anyone from before. She didn't elaborate, and I didn't ask. Later, we stopped at a corner store. She bought 2 cans of jasmine tea. No idea why that made me nervous. We sat on a bench behind the old church, sipping the tea in silence. The can felt cold in my hand, but I didn't want to finish it, like it would end the moment. She asked, "Do you still live with your parents?" I shook my head. "Basement apartment. Smells like drywall. Landlord's nice, though. Retired musician. Thinks I'm his reincarnated cat. She laughed, then looked over. You're easy to be around. I didn't know what to do with that. Just nodded, pretending the rim of my can needed inspection. She told me her son was my age, studying abroad. I nodded again, a little slower this time. That made it real. A part of me had known, but hearing it out loud changed something. I started imagining how old he was when she taught him to ride a bike, whether he ever sat on her lap when he was sick, if he had her eyes, and then if he'd ever call or visit and see me. We sat in silence after that. Her hand rested on the bench between us, fingers slightly curled. I didn't touch them. I just stared, then looked away too quickly. At one point, she closed her eyes and tilted her head toward the sky, like the sun might say something worth hearing. Her neck was bare. No necklace, just a faint crease that made me think of early mornings and undone collars. She opened her eyes, caught me looking, and smiled like she'd already forgiven me. When she dropped me near the bus stop, I started to say something. I don't even know what, but she cut me off with a light tap to my arm. Not flirtatious, not maternal, just intentional. I like walking with you, she said, then added, almost like it cost her something. But this can't be an escape, for either of us. I didn't answer, just watched her walk back to her car. Her shoulders were straight, but her hand trembled slightly when she reached for the door handle. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me, and then reminded me not to disappear. She stopped coming for 2 weeks. I didn't ask why, didn't text, didn't want to seem like I was keeping score. But I noticed. The door stayed closed. Her table stayed empty. I still made her usual every Tuesday at noon. Oat milk cappuccino, extra hot, no lid, and let it sit until it cooled, then dumped it out quietly before the lunch crowd hit. I told myself it didn't matter. Then she walked in one Thursday. No warning. Hair damp from the rain, jacket too thin for the weather. She looked tired. Not messy. Just like she'd forgotten to carry herself the way she usually did. You're not a Tuesday, I said before I could stop myself. She gave me a small smile. Is that all right? I nodded. Of course it was. We didn't sit in her usual corner. We stood near the window side by side. She didn't order, just sipped from the mug I handed her. Like I already knew what she wanted. I guess I did. Then my coworker Maya leaned over the counter, grinning too wide. That her? I blinked. Who? She raised an eyebrow. Tuesday woman. The one you make coffee for and pretend you're not into. My face flushed before I could laugh it off. I didn't look at her, the woman, but I felt the stillness in her body, like something locked up. When Maya walked off, I finally turned. Sorry. She doesn't mean anything by it. She stared at her cup, then shook her head. It's okay. I just forgot I could still be noticed that way. That sentence sat there, full of dust and old light. I didn't know what to say. She touched her ring finger, bare, then dropped her hand. Sometimes I think I like this, not because of you, she said quietly, but because you don't ask for anything. I frowned. Is that a good thing? She didn't answer, just kept looking down, twisting the sleeve of her jacket between 2 fingers. Later, we sat outside. The rain had stopped, but the air was wet. She handed me a tissue, and I didn't know why until I realized my nose was bleeding. Just a dot. She pressed her thumb to the corner of my lip, gentle, careful. Too careful. Her hand lingered. Not long, just enough. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something else, then closed it. Cars passed. One of them had a song I almost recognized playing too loud. The kind you hum in elevators. I should go, she said, but she didn't stand. I watched her fingers curl into her palm. I wanted to ask if she ever thought about it. Not us, not anything that bold, just it. Whatever it was we were orbiting. Whatever this had quietly become. But I said nothing. And when she finally stood, she touched my shoulder. Lightly, like brushing lint off a shirt, but held it a second too long. We sat on the same bench behind the church. 3rd time now. Still quiet. Still hers, somehow. She'd brought soup in a thermos. Handed it to me without comment. It smelled like ginger and something softer. I pretended not to notice the napkin folded too neatly around the spoon. I took a bite. This tastes like a memory. She smiled faintly. It is. We didn't say more than that for a while. A kid passed by on a scooter, his father trailing behind with a look that was equal parts exhausted and proud. She watched them. I watched her. Then she said, out of nowhere, I looked you up last week. My hands stilled. What? Your name. Just your name. I knew your last one from the pay slip near the register. Her voice was calm. Too calm. I saw your graduation photo. I didn't know what part to react to first, the looking, or the fact that she'd stopped pretending not to care. She turned toward me slowly. You looked like you were trying not to smile, like you didn't think anyone was going to show up. I didn't answer. I used to feel that way, that no one would show up unless I made it easy for them. Still, I said nothing. The silence was heavy, but not cruel. You remind me of someone I knew, she went on, before I got married. He was gentle, and I think I made him feel small because I didn't know how to accept something I didn't have to earn. I swallowed. The thermos was warm in my hands, but I felt cold. Are you scared of this? I asked finally. My voice came out softer than I meant. She exhaled, steady. Not of this, of how easy it is. A bird hopped close, then away again. She didn't flinch. I did. Then she said, my son's coming home in a week. That was it. No follow-up. Just a fact dropped like a coin between us. Does he know you come here? I asked. Her laugh was small. He barely knows I make soup. I wanted to say something honest. Wanted to ask, what are we doing? But I didn't. Instead, I said, do you ever feel like you're standing too close to something you're not supposed to touch? She looked at me then. Really looked. Her eyes didn't soften. They steadied, like she was bracing for something, or letting it happen. Then her hand moved, slowly, and rested on the space between us. Not on my hand, just beside it. Close enough. She didn't move it. The thermos clicked shut in my lap. Wind stirred the leaves around our feet. Then she said, do you think you'll remember this when you're older? Her voice didn't waver, but her eyes asked something else entirely. She stopped answering. Not in a dramatic way, just less. Shorter replies, longer gaps. Busy week. Rain made traffic worse. No walk today. Hope you're well. Each message felt like it was composed at a distance, like someone speaking through glass. I didn't push, not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't sure I had the right to. At the cafe, I watched the door more than I watched the clock. Tuesdays passed, then Thursdays. I kept folding napkins into squares I never used. One day Maya asked, hey, is your Tuesday woman okay? I didn't know how to answer that. The next time I saw her, it wasn't at the cafe or the bench. It was at the grocery store, aisle 6, tea and biscuits. She was standing with a man, mid-50s maybe, sharp coat, kind eyes, too comfortable around her. They weren't touching, but her body tilted slightly toward him, like memory, not impulse. I almost said her name, didn't. She saw me before I could slip away. A flicker of something passed across her face. Not guilt, not panic, just recognition. She nodded once. I nodded back. That was it. She didn't text after that. Neither did I. Days blurred. I kept trying to read, but every paragraph drifted off halfway. Music started to sound like it was trying too hard. My apartment felt louder when I wasn't speaking. I wrote a message late one night. It's okay if you changed your mind. Just don't vanish. That's the part that hurts. I stared at it for 20 minutes, then deleted it, rewrote it, deleted again. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. I kept going to the bench anyway, brought the soup thermos once. It stayed closed. Sometimes I imagined her sitting across from me, imagined what she'd say if I asked whether any of it had meant what I thought it did. Maybe she'd say, of course it did. That's why I had to stop. Maybe she'd say nothing at all. A week later, I passed the church again. The bench was empty, but there was a slip of paper tucked beneath the wooden slat. It wasn't addressed to anyone. No name, no message. Just a line from a poem I didn't recognize. I kept the silence warm for you, in case you came back different. I didn't know if it was hers. But I sat for a while anyway. Didn't check my phone. Didn't make a plan. Just waited. Like maybe the sentence would find its ending if I stayed quiet enough. She showed up at my door. No text. No warning. Just the sound of quiet knuckles on wood at 7:12 p.m. I opened it and there she was, holding a book, like it had given her permission to come. "It's overdue," she said, lifting it. Figured I should return it properly. It wasn't mine. I'd never loaned her a book. But I stepped aside anyway. She walked in like she didn't know whether she should. Jacket still on. Hair pulled back, like she hadn't planned to stay. Her eyes moved over the space. The unwashed mug, the quiet lamp, the one blanket draped over the back of the couch like it didn't belong to anyone. "I'm sorry I disappeared," she said, not looking at me. "I thought I could sort through it alone. I've always done that. Pulled back before things start to shift." "You mean before they start to mean something?" She didn't answer, just pressed her lips together like she was holding back a sentence with too many sharp edges. I sat on the arm of the couch. Not too close. She stayed standing. "I didn't know how to make it okay," she said finally. "To want this. You." I nodded. "You don't have to make it okay. You just have to not pretend it didn't happen." Silence settled like dust. Then she said, "He saw a photo of us, my son, at the cafe. He didn't say much. Just asked if I was lonely." I didn't know how to respond to that. My hands fidgeted with the edge of my shirt, folding the seam, unfolding. She stepped forward, slowly. I told him I wasn't. Not then. Something cracked in her voice. Not pain. Just the weight of trying too hard to sound fine for too long. I stood. The room felt small now. Not cramped. Just real. "You don't have to explain anything," I said. "But I'm here. If you want me to be." She looked at me then. For real. I was tired, maybe, but not closed. "I don't know what this is supposed to be," she whispered. "Me neither." She stepped closer, book still in hand. Then she did something small, barely noticeable. She reached out, touched the corner of my shirt, like she was checking if I was solid. Like maybe part of her didn't believe I'd actually stayed. "I'm not trying to make you younger," she said. "I just haven't felt like myself in a long time. And with you, I don't have to work so hard to feel human." I didn't say anything, just breathed out, slow. She let go of my shirt. Her hand stayed between us, hovering. Then I reached for it. Not bold, not desperate, just a quiet okay. And she held on. We never called it love. Not out loud. Not in the way people expect, arms thrown wide, declarations made in doorways. Ours came in quieter shapes. Tuesday mornings became our thing again. Not every week. Not always at the same time. But often enough to feel like something steady. She still ordered the oat milk cappuccino extra hot. No lid. I started drinking black coffee. No idea why. It just felt honest. She brought books sometimes. Left one behind once. Not by accident, just placed it carefully on the table before leaving. I read it cover to cover that night. The spine cracked once in the middle, page 123. She'd underlined a line in pencil. "Some people arrive like answers." The bench behind the church grew familiar again. We didn't always talk when we sat there. Sometimes we just watched people pass, trading slow sips of tea from the same thermos. She liked jasmine. I still didn't, but I stopped minding. Her son came home for the summer. I met him once, briefly. He was polite, a little guarded. I didn't stay long. She didn't ask me to. Some lines take longer to soften. But I noticed after that, she started wearing her hair down more. No jacket, just loose sweaters and bare wrists. Once she came over after work. I was making instant noodles, and she leaned against the kitchen counter, laughing at how seriously I watched the timer on the stove. "You still count seconds like they owe you something," she said. I shrugged. "Some things deserve to be done right." She smiled, walked over, and stirred the noodles slowly with a fork. I watched her hand, that small, familiar motion. I don't know why it hit me, but in that moment, everything felt exactly as it should. No questions, no tension, just a quiet rhythm that belonged to us. There were still pauses, days when she pulled back or I did, when the past knocked a little louder than usual. But neither of us vanished anymore. That was the difference. Now and then, she'd look at me across a table or from the passenger seat, like she was remembering who she used to be before all the noise. And sometimes I think I reminded her. One morning, 8:47 a.m., I woke up to the smell of tea. She'd let herself in, didn't knock, didn't ask, just moved through the room like it belonged to both of us. I sat up. She handed me the cup. Still too hot? I asked. She nodded. Exactly how I like it. We didn't say much after that. Just sat by the window, her foot touching mine lightly under the blanket. And I realized something then. The peace wasn't in the moment itself, but in knowing it would return. Like Tuesday, like tea, like her. She looked at me, eyes soft, no urgency. You still folding napkins? I smiled. Only the ones I don't want to lose. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?